in many ways, the kind of community we're trying to create in the Courage to Teach is a community that is devoted to encouraging self-reflection. Because the human self, what Thomas Merton called true self, I don't mean the ego, I don't mean the fancy designs we have for how we ought to look or how we ought to succeed or how much money we ought to be making or how we ought to be liked. I mean that true self that is the core of every person. That's the gift we have to give. And we are trying to create a form of community that invites self-reflection in order to put people in fuller possession of that gift. Thomas Merton said it well. He said, we are called to give our hearts to the world, but first we have to have our hearts in our own possession. You can't give what you don't have. And so this is a 2-year process to recover the gift you arrived here with at birth, but may well have lost in the intervening time. Now, the hows of that are many and various. One thing I love that we do a lot of is we put what we call a third thing in the middle of the communal circle. The third thing is a poem or a teaching story from one of the great spiritual traditions, Taoism, Hasidic Judaism, the New Testament, Sufi stories. We use a range of materials. We put a third thing in the center of the circle, carefully chosen, because that third thing carries a theme or an issue that we're wanting people to be self-reflective about. And the facilitator's task is, through a dialogical process of questioning, is to help that community of teachers weave a tapestry of understanding about where their lives intersect that third thing. I can give you a concrete example. We use a poem by May Sarton, whom I regard as a great poet, called Now I Become Myself. It's 15 or 20 lines long, and I don't have it all committed to memory, but I can give you the first 4 lines. Now I become myself. It's taken time, many years and places. I have been dissolved and shaken, worn other people's faces. You don't have to put much more than those few lines in the center of the circle and ask some questions about how those lines intersect the lives of the people sitting there to evoke the most amazing range of reflections about how long it takes to become the self that you were when you got here and that you lost somewhere along the line, about those dissolving and shaking moments in life where everything falls apart and it seems like all is lost, but out of that reemerges true self, about wearing other people's faces, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. When you're young, sometimes it's great to have a good face to wear when you don't yet know your own, the face of an admired teacher or parent or friend. But as we grow older, wearing our own faces becomes the most important piece of work we have to do. But we put a third thing in the center of the circle. The task is not to ask, as one might do in a lit crit class, what did May Sarton mean by that, or how did that relate to May Sarton's life? All of that is irrelevant here. The task is to allow that third thing to invite the voice of the inner teacher in the people in the circle to come forth and to speak about things that it might not otherwise be able to speak about. It's very interesting that you can say things about that poem which are really things about you, without ever talking about yourself directly. But we all know that that's who we're talking about. Poems and stories are like Rorschach tests, and when people respond to them, they're saying a great deal about themselves. And in this form of community, where nobody's going to jump on you for what you said, or nobody's going to try to save you or fix you or set you straight, you have a chance to hear yourself at a new level. And you go to bed that night thinking, oh my goodness, I just realized something that I need to work with here, something about who I am, something about my woundedness, or something about my passion that the inner teacher is trying to tell me, and now I need to pay attention.
Let's talk about another technique which you use, which is journaling.
Mm-hmm.
What does journaling provide?
Journaling, of course, is a method of an approach to inner reflection that has been used in a lot of different traditions and schools of thought. And I think what it does is to allow you to have a conversation with yourself. I think external conversation is enormously valuable. I'm constantly learning from other people. And a lot of that learning from other people goes on in the Courage to Teach groups. But there is finally a conversation we need to have with ourselves. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? What did I mean when I said that? Am I going to do it differently tomorrow? These are things I have to ask myself, and I have to listen to answers that I don't necessarily know. I know that some people who teach journaling encourage a process of imaginative reflection in which you have a dialogue between two different parts of yourself. And people start doing that thinking, well, this is kind of silly because I'm in charge of everything that's being said here. Why a dialogue? But after a very little while, they're discovering that the partner in that dialogue is saying things that they didn't know they had to say. So there's live learning going on from within ourselves. I think one of the most exciting experiences in life is to understand that I am a walking community of many voices, of many intersecting lives and forces, past, present, and future. I'm a one-person pluralism. I'm not a monolith. I don't speak even to myself with one voice. And to understand that what I've got in there is a city, at least a neighborhood, that needs to have some good block meetings, some good dialogues to sort itself out and to listen to the diversity of voices that any human being contains. That's a great thing and a very exciting part of the human journey.